Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this review of the El Paso County Parks and Recreation recommendations. My name is Jim Carrillo. I'm a planner with Half Associates, and we've been working with El Paso County for the last approximately 12 months on this plan. And so we're very happy to bring forward these recommendations and get your comments. I'm going to start sharing a screen, and we'll be looking at that in terms of the recommendations and what we've been talking about. So this plan, as I said, started a little bit over a year ago, and we've been working on it with many aspects of the staff and the county commissioners. And this plan now is at the point where we want some final feedback before we take this forward to the commissioners for their review and an ultimate approval. So we thank you for being here and listening to this, whether you're listening to it via this recording or others that have listened to it in person. And thank you, muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros también para participar en esto y darnos sus opiniones con respecto a las recomendaciones que estamos haciendo. El Paso County started off with a mission statement developed a few years ago, and it's really important to use that mission statement as the basis for the recommendations that are being made. And it talks about a rich mix of cultural, recreation, and social opportunities in all the parks, and provided for all residents of El Paso County, no matter where you live in the county, so that you have an enhanced quality of life. And everything that we do as out of this master plan and actions by the county related to parks should follow that mission statement. We know that parks bring a lot of benefits, whether it's health and well-being, economic benefits, whether it's an opportunity for youth and give them recreation opportunities, or it's just to preserve natural resources and a little bit of green spaces for us. So all those things are important. And especially today, health trends are very important. We look at statistics from all over the United States, not just from El Paso County, where obesity and diabetes and diseases like that are preventable are gaining a lot. We want to try to do something to reduce those. So it's very important to look at the health trends coming out of a plan like this and how the plan can help those. It's also important to note all the benefits and the things that have been done by El Paso County and its park staff over the last few years. A lot of those include updates to existing parks, and those continue even today. And a lot of grant opportunities that the county has been very successful in bringing in outside funding for those improvements across the county. So these are great achievements by El Paso County staff. And I'll just point out one improvement that just gives you an idea of how valuable those improvements are. This is Agua Dulce Park, and before the improvements were made, and you can see the image after that. And you can see all the great amenities that have been added: a covered playground area, covered shade shelters for picnicking, wonderful open play fields for recreation, a new skate park. And the park is just really nicely organized and put together in a way where it's going to be an asset for everyone who lives around that particular park in the years to come. And so this is what we need to continue to do throughout the entire county and in new parks that might come in the future itself. So what is this plan? It's a long-term vision. It kind of sets the roadmap for where parks should be in El Paso County and gives the county commissioners, county administrators, and county park staff a roadmap as to the things that they need to do. It doesn't guide them every single day, but it's more the big picture. Where are we trying to go to? What are the big things we need to do? And then it helps staff figure out how to get to those points in the future. There are four main missions and goals that have been created in this plan, and those revolve around the growth of the park system. So as El Paso County, especially in the unincorporated areas of the county, grow and new neighborhoods are built there, what kind of park facilities do they need? The second is investments in parks, existing parks. So some of the bigger parks, for example, like Ascarate or Gallegos Park or Veterans Park in the Mission Valley area. And then programs and events. So ongoing events that make parks interesting. They help us, encourage us to use the parks and go to them for things that interest each one of us. And those are an important part of a park system. And then finally, just the operations and maintenance. How do you take care of them? Make sure that the parks are in as good condition as they possibly can be every day of the year. So when we start off with looking at El Paso County's parks, it's important to note how those parks serve different parts of the county. And this map shows all the different parks that the county currently operates, starting with the larger parks and Ascarate in the middle, and then other parks throughout the entire area. And there are three key areas that we've identified and set this up as a framework for policy generated by the El Paso County that relates to what kinds of services and the role that El Paso County will play in these different areas. So in planning area number one, that's the green area on your screen. Those are the areas that El Paso largely cover the city of El Paso and then many of the larger communities within the remainder of El Paso County, like Socorro, Anthony, Horizon City. Those cities have established park systems, and the role that El Paso County will play in those is in a support role, perhaps partnership on special things, but largely those cities take care of their own individual park needs. Area number two, which is the bluish purplish area on your screen, those are the areas that we look at where El Paso County plays a more active role. They're unincorporated today, and in some cases, it may be a long time before they become part of any nearby community. But in the interim, as new neighborhoods are developed, those areas will need parks and they need park service. And so the county can step in and help to support the growth of that, working with developers as they build in those particular areas. And then in number three, the tannish area on your screen, those are the areas that it's going to be a long time before those get incorporated into any city. But again, anyone who lives in those areas, and especially communities like Fabens and Tornillo, those are places that still need and should have adequate park systems and park facilities that they can access nearby. And so those will be provided by the county, and the county plays a very significant role in making sure that they have some level of service and access to parks in those particular areas. El Paso County is going to be looking at four different kinds of parks, and those range from very large parks, regional parks as we call them, to very small parks, smaller parks or pocket parks. But in general, the two main categories of parks that El Paso County will provide are regional parks and then neighborhood parks, which are the closer, more accessible parks to where everyone throughout the county lives, and especially, as I said earlier, within the unincorporated or smaller communities within the region. Trails are important, and El Paso County has been instrumental in helping to work with the Paso del Norte Health Foundation on the regional trail system that's being proposed. That'll go essentially follows the river corridor, close to the river corridor, and goes from one end of the county to the other. So an incredible amenity that once it's built will be a great asset to everyone, and the large parts of the county's population will be relatively close to that trail and be able to access it. Where's the park system today? So we start off with kind of an assessment, and we use different methodologies to look at that. We look at what the demand is and talking to different groups and entities throughout the county, what the demands are, what the access is to parks, what's the proximity to a park near you, what are some of the conditions of each of individual park, and so what are the things that might need to be improved or added to those parks. And then we look at resources. So what are the kinds of resources? For example, the lake at Ascarate is a very valuable resource. So how do we work with that particular asset and make it something that we can use? We've conducted surveys last year throughout the county, and these are statistically valid surveys. So they give us a good sense from the science of statistics as to how the answers that we received might relate to everyone in the county with a certain percentage of accuracy. So generally they're well over 90% accurate in terms of if you asked anyone how they might respond. And the most used parks are Ascarate and the Sports Park. Barriers include shade and other things like that. And there's a few very important questions. So let me go into those in a little bit of detail. Um, Top used parks, of course, the city of El Paso, with well over, probably 200 plus parks, has a very established system. And so most residents of the county, especially those living within El Paso, will use those parks first and foremost. But El Paso County, with about 11 or 12 parks, also gets a lot of use. As you can see from the survey results, 44% of the residents have used or looked at some park within that's operated by El Paso County over the last few years. And that's pretty spectacular when you think about that ratio of only about 11 or 12 parks compared to the 200 plus that the city of El Paso has. So very, very good to see that the county's parks are used. Now, the top used ones, of course, are Ascarate and the Sports Park, but even some of the smaller parks that are spread throughout the county, such as Reisinger Park in Fabens, and Agua Dulce Park, and then Westway Park over on the upper west side near Anthony. Those parks all get some degree of usage that show up in this survey, so we're glad to see that. Now, barriers to using the county's parks include, of course, shade. Shade becomes a huge amenity for anyone in this region. Don't know what's offered, the poor condition of facilities, safety or security concerns, facilities or programs aren't offered. Those are kind of some of the high things that keep people away from using many of the parks in the county. We also asked about what kinds of investments would be most important, and a good range of answers, ranging from trails, and trails are always extremely popular, to natural areas and picnic shelters, indoor multi-purpose rooms, such as the county operates in a few places within the county, that are very important to have, and then different kinds of activities such as fishing and playground and community gardens, and some of the aquatic facilities that the county operates. So these are the kinds of things where there's an investment interest. In terms of recreation programs, the answers we got focus on community special events, fitness and wellness programs, art classes, and then programs for adults and especially for seniors as well. So distribution recommendations. So this is relates to making sure that everyone throughout the county has good access to parks. And these include some of the larger parks and accessing them. So the big red circle you see in the middle is Ascarate Park, and it's very well centralized within the county. So it, of course, becomes a center point for anyone throughout the county to be able to use it. But then we look at the larger community parks and regional parks in different parts of the county that serve them. So Gallegos Park in the west side, upper west side, becomes a critical park for the communities of Anthony and Benton and Canutillo and many of the residents who live in that area. That is the large park in that area that has a lot of different things that are of interest to them. We'd like to see ultimately in the Mission Valley area around Clint and San Elizario, and then ultimately in the Fabens, Tornillo area, similar parks to this built over time as the populations of those areas grow. Likewise, in the upper northeast side, and in partnership and probably under the leadership of the city of El Paso, we think a large regional park is warranted in that area as well. And as well, then, and ultimately, and this is probably much longer term, out along the Montana corridor as the population grows towards the far eastern boundary of El Paso County. So this kind of illustrates where you have those parks today and where future parks, the ones in green, might be needed. One other park to take note of is San Felipe Park, which is a great new park that the county is developing. It's actually been with the county, has the county's had it for a while, but it's now being developed as a very specialized off-road vehicle type park. So you'll be able to take motorized motorcycles and dune buggies and things like that, and it'll be a one-of-a-kind park that's set up for uses like that. But it also will be a great place to use as a location for just being out, sort of in the desertscape, with picnicking facilities, walking facilities, nature viewing facilities. That'll be a very unique park for the lower and the eastern part of the county. As a local park provider, the red circles indicate parks that the county currently operates, and the green circles indicate places where there might be at some point, sometimes in some cases fairly soon, in other cases a little bit further down, parks that might be necessary to fill some of those gaps and provide close access to everyone within the county, so to some park facility of some sort. We also look at special recreation facilities, such as pools and aquatics and community centers. And again, the red circles indicate ones where there are pools or community centers today. And in the blue circles indicate where future facilities will likely be needed and that the county should begin to plan for those in the future. So for especially out along the Montana corridor, in some of the residential areas in the far eastern side of the county, as well as south of Horizon City, getting towards, again, the Clint, San Elizario, and other communities in that area. And then in long term, out towards the Risinger, the Fabens and Tornillo area. Likewise, in the upper west side, it got Gallegos, making sure that those facilities that are there now are upgraded and are set up to be there for the next 20, 30, 40 years into the future. Also, trails, we want to make sure that every single park, well, no matter how small, has some sort of a walking facility in it. Maybe it's just a small quarter-mile walking track around that park, but maybe it's another one that is very useful and that could be added, that becomes that place where anyone can go to walk for health purposes and just to get outside and being in a nice park environment. Some specific park recommendation ideas now, and I'll start off by talking about Ascarate Park. And everything we've heard is that Ascarate Park is so well loved by everyone that lives in the county, with many fond memories of it over many years. That park has reached a point where it's this incredible jewel, but it really needs an updating. It needs to be transformed for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And so we're making some recommendations that become sort of the starting point for that. I'll go through some of these real quickly. So we have ideas for paseos around the lake itself, uh, improvements at the entrance to the park, aquatic facilities, perhaps garden-esque areas and desertscape areas, and perhaps even a conservatory in some places where you have water surrounding the island that is near the golf course clubhouse. Um, Play fields are already being established by the county. Um, Walking trails and even places for fishing. And so you see the piers coming out over the lake where it could create additional fishing nooks for fishermen, since fishing is very popular in the lake itself. Perhaps a bridge that crosses the lake and connects you from one place to the other, one side of the lake to the other. And this becomes an additional iconic feature of the park that can be lit up at night, and it can become a very special place within the park itself. Near the golf course clubhouse, we're recommending that perhaps the county look at a series of restaurants and shops and other things in that area that become almost like a both day and night um, venue where you're very close to the lake itself and you can enjoy it and sit out there and just to have a really great place for evening entertainment close to water, which is again a very precious and rare opportunity in the greater El Paso region. So it could be an incredible amenity and add a lot of life to the park itself. Within that oval area that you see at the bottom of your screen, that's an area where we've planned for events, a more formalized area for events, whether those are concerts or festivals or in times when it's not in use, just a large open area, this open play area to be a very attractive addition to the park itself. And some of the images that you see on your screen represent what these might look like. So you've got event facilities and sort of, point out the architecture of the pavilion in your upper right-hand side of your upper left-hand side of your screen. And that just shows, that just taking a little care and thinking about how that stage covering looks like, it becomes an iconic feature of the park itself. Vertical elements could be placed in the park so that even if you're a few miles away from Ascarate during the daytime and at night as well, you'll be able to kind of orient yourself around the park, and it becomes a very memorable centerpiece for everyone that lives in El Paso County. Art is a very important part of the park itself, and so there are opportunities for art in many places within the park itself. And nighttime again becomes this sort of really unique place, again because of the presence of water, and you can just see the way that water reflected perhaps off the bridge that we talked about, or even looking, those little restaurants and places similar again to the San Antonio Riverwalk, which is what you're seeing. These all become really unique places at Ascarate Park and opportunities at Ascarate Park. So many different ideas for it. This is the starting point, and we've proposed to the county a series of recommendations, but it becomes the initial starting point for ultimate improvements to Ascarate. And then finally, at the southern end of the park itself, you have the Mothers and Board, all ages play area that's being worked on right now. That'll be a tremendous addition to the, excuse me, to the park itself. And then perhaps a dog park, additional pavilions and trails and paseos around it, and even the preservation of the second lake, the Duck Pond Lake, as again a very unique feature for the park itself. We are also looking at additional accesses, so making sure that that second access along the Cesar Chavez Highway becomes a more accessible access, and then perhaps even a third access in the northern part of the park that helps only during large events to make sure that there's an ability to handle traffic coming in and out of the park itself. The single biggest aspect of Ascarate is to ensure that the lake is well evaluated and maintained for the long term. So whether it needs dredging or repair of the walls along the edge of the lake itself, or other features like that, making sure that those happen early on so that that lake is well preserved and taken care of, and it can serve as a foundation for everything else that happens around the Ascarate. Another great asset that El Paso County has is the sports park, and the sports park is the premier facility for sports in the region right now, especially diamond sports. And you know that you're going to go there to play against the best players, great competition, and really first-class facilities. And so improvements to the sports park are making it just a better experience, whether it's additional parking that's going to be built, enhancements to the access points, perhaps a better center cluster area where you've got places where moms can hang out with children in between games, or there's walking trails around the entire park itself. And then ultimately also making it more accessible and useful to the neighborhoods that are right adjacent to it, so that when it's not, events aren't happening, if they can access parts of the park itself and make it sort of their local park with playgrounds and walking facilities. So lots of great ideas for the sports park as well. And then finally, I want to emphasize that Gallegos Park, as I said earlier, is very important to that northwestern, to the portion of the county, to all those communities around it. And so enhancing Gallegos Park, updating the facilities within it, and especially the athletic facilities, the pool and the community building that's there, just providing a lot of amenities, first class amenities for residents of the area, and perhaps even expanding it to access the nearby river trail, and then looking at some of the lands that other public agencies may have in the area, and just making sure that it's adequate to serve everyone in that area as the population continues to grow over the next, several decades into the future. So keeping Gallegos Park as this really important special park is a key of this plan. Finally, improvements to existing parks need to continue. I showed you Agua Dulce Park in the past, few slides, and just the same kinds of improvements need to continue throughout, whether it's Reisinger Park in the Mission Valley area, or improvements to Westway Park in the upper west side, just making sure that all of the facilities are maintained and transformed every few years as they get a little older. In summary, all of these recommendations over this period of time that we're looking at, we've looked at each one, and they include Ascarate and Gallegos and Sports Park, smaller parks, some of the recreation facilities and aquatic facilities. And these are targeted as recommendations so that the county can begin to look for sources of funding. Perhaps some of these could be uh, bond sources in the future, should the county commissioners choose to go that route and get the support of everyone who lives in El Paso County. But they could also be grant opportunities and privately funded opportunities, perhaps opportunities from other foundations that want to contribute and help out. So many different sources of funding to make this plan happen. Really want to point out that this is a long-term plan, and so these things will not happen overnight, but they are the foundation for improvements over a long period of time. So with that, we really appreciate all the your attention to listening to this. We would love to have your feedback. Please contact the county park staff if you would like to provide feedback. You can also look at the county uh, park system website, and there's a link there to the master plan, and it'll give you information how to provide feedback and contacts and information for us. We would really like to hear that before this goes to the county commissioners for their final review and approval later on in the summertime. So thank you again, and we appreciate your participating in this meeting and helping us out with it. So thank you again, and I'll stop sharing and I'll close this meeting. Thank you.